Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we are going to be talking about the Twitter files, aka the expose that Elon Musk and affiliates, I guess is the best way to say it, have been doing on the old systems at Twitter. Basically, Elon Musk came out and said that they had found a whole bunch of information and everything after he acquired the company that showed that Twitter was up to some pretty nefarious shit, right? And the accusations have been going crazy, you know, from basically meddling in elections to picking sides and favoritism with bands and everything. There has been a lot of stories in this entire thing, and it's definitely very intriguing as somebody who likes to pay attention to what's going on with a lot of these major social media platforms. It's definitely interesting to kind of get this look in and kind of be able to see exactly how Twitter used to operate, right? Before Elon Musk came in, what was it that they were doing? What were the things that they basically were putting in place? And how are they treating people, right? Because obviously over the years, there's been a lot of allegations made against Twitter, and not even just Twitter, but a lot of the social media platforms that we all have come to know and love or hate. For instance, Republicans and people on the right wing of American politics have long accused Twitter of political suppression, essentially targeting people on the right, not treating them to the same standards that they would treat people on the left, and basically using the Twitter platform to suppress Republicans. That's been one of the larger accusations that have been made and everything, but this is definitely a pretty interesting read. This is an interesting topic altogether. Now, not all of this has come out yet. This is just kind of like the first day's worth of stuff that has come out in this entire situation. And of course, you know, as more stuff comes out, I'm sure there's a lot more bombshells that'll come out over the next few days. But as this all kind of unfolds, I'd like to live cover it here on my YouTube channel and kind of break everything down for you guys to help you better understand what all of this means and to just kind of, you know, signal it a little bit, just share a little bit of the information out with my audience. Because I think it's important that people are aware of things like this, right? When you've got these major social media platforms potentially playing favorites and, you know, having the influence they do, it's important for people to realize, like, hey, these social media platforms aren't perfect and they will act in their own self-interest in order to do whatever it is that they want to do. So Elon Musk came out and said that there was going to be the first revelations of the Twitter files yesterday, and someone by the name of Matt Taibbi, I believe is how you, I don't know how to pronounce it. You'll see it here in a minute. At Taibbi came out with all this information, and it has since gone absolutely viral on Twitter. It's actually trending right now, the day after all of this came out, and there's supposedly more information that will be coming in the next few days. Like I said, I will be talking about that here on my channel, so if you're interested in keeping up with this coverage and knowing what's going on with the Twitter files, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications for all of my uploads, and also leave a like on this video. It'll help it in the algorithm and help this video share itself and spread even more through the algorithm. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into the Twitter files. So what you're about to read is the first installment in a series based upon thousands of internal documents obtained by sources at Twitter. The Twitter files tell an incredible story from inside one of the world's largest and most influential social media platforms. It is a Frankensteinian tale of a human-built mechanism grown out of the control of its designer. Twitter in its conception was a brilliant tool for enabling instant mass communication, making a true real-time global conversation possible for the first time. In an early conception, Twitter more than lived up to its mission statement, giving people, quote, the power to create and share ideas and information instantly without barriers. As time progressed, however, the company was slowly forced to add those barriers. Some of the first tools for controlling speech were designed to combat the likes of spam and financial fraudsters. Slowly over time, Twitter staff and executives began to find more and more uses for these tools. Outsiders began petitioning the company to manipulate speech as well, first a little, then more often, then constantly. So before we go any further, this obviously is right in line with a lot of the allegations that have been made against Twitter over time, right? Like I said, you've had people on the right especially criticizing Twitter for its usage of these systems and everything that they've implemented to basically suppress them. And even like myself, right? Like I've been shadow banned on Twitter numerous times, not even just once. It's probably been 4 or 5 times now. And even until this day, if you go to my Twitter at @subtooptimus, anytime like I upload a video or a picture to the platform, there is a sensitive content warning that is placed in front of it to where you can't see it unless you go into your settings and change one specific setting in the entire menu of everything that you can do, right, in order to see my content. And I know that I'm not the only person that stuff like this has happened to. It's pretty goddamn ridiculous if we're being honest. honest, but apparently Optimus is the Al-Qaeda of Twitter at this point. You gotta prevent people from seeing and hearing what I have to say because I'm just fucking up everything so much. But it's been kind of like a pretty open secret that Twitter has been pretty ridiculous with a lot of this moderation policy that they've created. And we're about to get into some actual bombshells right now. This isn't just some random tweets or anything. This next thing that we're about to take a look at here includes screenshots from the internals at Twitter and everything that kind of show that they have been suppressing speech on the platform, and there's been some like Gestapo-like review process put in place where essentially, like, well, in this instance, President Joe Biden's team apparently could send over tweets that they didn't like, and the next thing you know, apparently it would just get handled. So let's take a look at that. By 2020, requests from connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, quote, "More to review from the Biden team." The reply would come back, "handled." And as you can see in this picture, there are 5 links to different tweets that have been sent on October 24th, 2020, right before the 2020 election. And a response from the internal folks at Twitter say that, well, these tweets have been handled, right? So obviously, this is a fucking bombshell. Like, this is huge. I don't think people at first glance are really going to realize how important this actually is, like how dangerous this really is. I mean, from what we're seeing here in this picture, right? And of course, you know, we don't know maybe the full context or whatever, right, behind everything that goes on here, but basically, a presidential candidate's team sent over some tweets that they didn't like, right? And of course, it just happens to be a Democrat, right? Because I really doubt that they would have had the same energy if it was like Donald Trump sending some tweets, right? But apparently, it just gets handled if it's a Democratic presidential candidate that doesn't like these tweets. Now, I don't think I should have to explain to you why this is a problem and why this is fucking scary to think about, right? We have people in legitimate positions of power. At this point, a presidential candidate with a career in politics having a team send over tweets that they don't like, and Twitter is quote-unquote handling those tweets. Obviously, nobody outside of Twitter should be making decisions on what is and what isn't acceptable to be put on Twitter. Now, if these tweets violated the rules or they violated whatever guidelines Twitter has, that's understandable. But it shouldn't be up to a presidential candidate's team to be moderating a platform for Twitter. That is fucking bad. There's no way around it. That's just inexcusable. But this isn't even the only time that something like this happened, as in the very next tweet, there's even more that came out from the very next day that says, "I grabbed the first one under SI, defer to safety on the high-profile second one." And then it says, "An additional report from the DNC, the Democratic National Committee," by the way. And it has 2 more people's tweets, including one from the celebrity James Woods, in what appears to be the DNC reporting tweets to Twitter that they don't like for Twitter to actually take action against. So from what we're seeing in this evidence here, from these screenshots and from these tweets that are coming out, by the way, that are being put out at the request of Elon Musk, the new owner of Twitter, the DNC and Democrats have had basically internal access to Twitter and have been able to help regulate the platform based on what they don't like. How can anyone, regardless of political affiliation, look at something like this and say that this is acceptable? There is absolutely zero reason whatsoever why any political party should have access to just, send some shit over to Twitter to be taken down. These people are not the fucking police. They are not even Twitter security, right? Like, once again, if Twitter comes to the conclusion that something is against the rules, I understand that, but for the DNC and for Biden's team to be sending over tweets that they don't like personally to have them taken down, that is fucking disturbing, man. That is actually dystopian as fuck. It's insane, dude. I mean, like, what else can really be said, right? But of course, it's actually not even just the Democrats. When you read the next tweet, this took me by surprise. I thought at first it was just going to be the Democrats and everything in this whole situation because that's how it was lining up to be. But it turns out that according to these Twitter files, Republicans also had their hands in the cookie jar as well, including from Trump's White House. So both parties had access to these tools. For instance, in 2020, requests from both the Trump White House and the Biden campaign were received and honored. However, and then it goes on, this system wasn't balanced. It was based on contacts because Twitter was and is overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation. There were more channels, more ways to complain open to the left, well, Democrats, than the right. And then it goes on to show some contributions by party of recipient and everything, and it shows that, well, it was definitely leaning a little further left than right. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. I mean, if both political parties were involved in using Twitter to suppress people speaking based on things they don't like, that's just not acceptable, you know? These social media platforms should not be playing political games with the White House and shit, taking down things that they don't like. Let me go ahead and lay this out for you, right? If we heard a story come out of China, right, where Weibo, which is like a huge social media platform in China, was going through and suppressing / deleting / taking action against tweets that were hand-selected by Xi Jinping's team, people would be like, oh, that's abuse of free speech. They're abusing people's human rights. That is authoritarian as fuck. But our presidents and our political parties have been doing the same fucking thing with Twitter, and, you know, you're not going to see any mainstream coverage of it. I haven't seen Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, anyone talking about this shit yet. And if they have, it's just been little passing glances. Oh, did you guys hear about the Twitter files? Wow, that's pretty crazy. This is bigger news than people want to make it out to be. The resulting slant in content moderation decisions is visible in the documents you're about to read. However, it's also the assessment of multiple current and former high-level executives. Okay, there was more throat clearing about the process, but screw it, let's jump forward. The Twitter Files, Part 1, How and Why Twitter Blocked the Hunter Biden Laptop Story. On October 14th, 2020, the New York Post published Biden's secret emails, an expose based on the contents of Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop. Twitter took extraordinary steps to suppress the story, removing links and posting warnings that it may be, quote, unsafe. They even blocked its transmission via direct message, a tool hitherto reserved for extreme cases, aka CP. White House spokeswoman Kayleigh McEnany was locked out of her account for tweeting about the story, prompting a furious letter from Trump campaign staffer Mike Hahn, who seethed, "At least pretend to care for the next 20 days. And of course, it goes on to show the email. This led public policy executive Caroline Strom to send out a polite what the fuck query. Several employees noted that there was tension between the comms and policy teams who had little to less control over moderation and the safety and trust teams. Of course, it shows more emails and everything. It just not really relevant. I'm not going to show the whole thing. It's basically her just asking to take a closer look. Strom's note returned the answer that the laptop story had been removed for violation of the company's, quote, hacked materials policy. And basically this is saying the story was suppressed because they got it through illegitimate means. Honestly, I think in this situation that should have probably been ignored. This was of significant political importance at the end of the day. It's a pretty important story, and it shouldn't have been suppressed. There's no way around it regardless. Although several sources recalled hearing about a general warning from federal law enforcement that summer about possible foreign hacks, there's no evidence that I've seen of any government involvement in the laptop story. In fact, that might have been the problem. The decision was made at the highest levels of the company, but without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey, with former head of legal policy and trust, Vijaya God, playing a key role. Quote, they just freelanced it, is how one former employee characterized the decision. Hacking was the excuse, but within a few hours, pretty much everyone realized that it wasn't going to hold, but no one had the guts to reverse it. You can see the confusion in the following lengthy exchange, which ends up including GAD and former Trust and Safety Chief Yoel Roth. Comms official Trenton Kennedy writes, quote, I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for marking this as unsafe, because obviously people are like, this is an important fucking story, there should be coverage of this, like coverage should be allowed on Twitter of something like this. And of course they're making excuses, oh well, you know, it's against our hacked policy or whatever, and that was their excuse for basically suppressing the Hunter Biden story. And this isn't even the end of it. The next few tweets I feel like are a little irrelevant to the situation. It's basically just them going back and forward on whether or not this is acceptable, whether or not Twitter's in the right or the wrong for basically suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story. As someone who, I mean, I'm not Democrat, I'm not Republican, I don't really lean any type of way politically with like parties and whatnot, but in my personal opinion, I think that this just falls under free speech. I mean, this was an important story. I mean, this is the son of now the president, right? In a pretty important story at that, right? Like, this is a pretty damning moment in the entire situation. And the fact that Twitter was so quick to cover it up and jump on this and everything and really just do what they could to suppress the story, I think is just dangerous, man. Like, these types of platforms should not be deciding whether or not things are newsworthy enough to be allowed on their platform. I think that's fucked up. I think that that's wrong. And at the end of the day, when it's a story quite like this, and it's like a major situation, right? Like, you gotta think this is one of the biggest news stories of the last couple years, in all reality. In a situation like that, Twitter should not be getting involved. That's just my personal take, right? Like, if I ran Twitter and this kind of thing happened, I wouldn't want this being suppressed. I wouldn't want this information not being shareable, even if it is against, you know, in their case, the political party that I affiliate with and whatnot. This is information that people should know and people should be able to see. But a lot of people didn't feel that way, including Democratic lawmakers who reached out to Twitter to basically share their input. And let's go ahead and take a look at that. So, the First Amendment isn't absolute. Szabo's letter contains chilling passages relaying Democratic lawmakers' attitudes. They want, quote, more moderation, and as for the Bill of Rights, it's, quote, not absolute. That is fucking insane, man. You have actual people in government trying to say that the Bill of Rights, the critical lifeline of human rights in the United States, is not absolute. Because a story that was damning to Democrats and to the Democratic Party and their candidate ended up getting aired out right before the election. People aren't seeing this. Like, you don't see this as a problem. This is fucking disgusting, man. You have actual Democratic lawmakers reaching out to Twitter, telling them that the First Amendment, the right to free speech, is not absolute, and there needs to be more moderation on Twitter so that basically stories like this can't be broken again. That is fucking disgusting to me, man. That is actually insane. Now, the Hunter Biden laptop story, you know, like, I remember when it came out, I remember reading through it and everything, and, you know, it wasn't the end of the world for me or anything, but it's like, man, this is just some unacceptable shit, dude. Like, there should be no way ever that government officials should be saying some shit like that, you know, oh, it's not absolute, the Bill of Rights is not absolute. That is fucking ridiculous. And what's craziest about this all is this whole story pretty much happened without the CEO, Jack Dorsey. Like, the guy who runs the company wasn't even the one making these decisions. The people making these decisions were lower downs in the entire system. I mean, they were still executives and higher ups in the grand scheme of things, but, you know, they're not the CEO of the company, and they're determining what everyone on Twitter can and can't see based off their own personal beliefs. That is fucking insane to me. And keep in mind, this isn't even the end of the Twitter files. This is just what's come out so far. So as more information comes out, I'm going to continue to cover this situation here on my YouTube channel. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubTheOptimus. Make sure to check out Shoptimus down below. Thank you to my Watch Optimus subscribers. Your support helps the channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, talking about the Twitter files and signing out.